You and I are both the last surviving sons of Big Boss. Les enfants terribles. The terrible children. That's what the project was called. It started in the 1970s. Their plan was to artificially create the most powerful soldier possible.
The Les Enfants Terribles project, the scientific breakthrough that set the entire plot of Metal Gear Solid as we knew it into motion. By fertilizing an egg with one of the cells of the legendary war hero Big Boss, they successfully created a series of clones along with creating the first generation of super soldiers. Two of them being Solid Snake, the legendary war hero, and Liquid Snake, the mastermind behind Shadow Moses. Metal Gear Solid was always one of my favorite video games, and while I love the concept of giant robots, telekinesis, and nanomachines, one of the most interesting theories by far was the creation of Liquid and Solid Snake themselves. But Jack, you say, Metal Gear Solid is just science fiction. Something like this could never happen in real life, right? Well, of course not. Or could it? Could the Les Enfants project really be done? Could it be possible to create a real Liquid and Solid Snake? That's what we're going to be covering in today's Theory episode of A Jack of All Trades, a series of miscellaneous videos about video games. What's worth noting about this project is how much of a parallel it has to real-world cloning experiments. Which one am I talking about? That would be the Dolly project.
Simple. Hello, Dolly.
The Dolly project took place July 5th, 1996, where our scientists would attempt and succeed at cloning a Finn Dorset sheep using one of the cells taken from its mammary gland. This was done by taking one of the cells from the mammary gland and remove the main part of the cell, that is the nucleus. They then placed the nucleus into a donor egg and used the process called enucleation. They then placed the egg into a surrogate mother ewe, and as a result, a Finn Dorset sheep was born that was genetically indistinguishable from its mother sheep. Starting to see the similarities? As we can see from the third game, Solid Snake is almost identical to Big Boss. The reason Liquid looks so different, however, is where Solid Snake got all of Big Boss's dominant genes, Liquid Snake got all of the recessive. So while the two of them look almost nothing alike, they are about as genetically identical to Big Boss as they could possibly be. So according to the first game, well, Liquid can explain it.
Super baby method. They fertilized an egg with one of Father's cells, and then let it divide into 8 clone babies. Then they transferred the clones to someone's uterus, and later intentionally aborted 6 of the fetuses to encourage strong fetal growth. You and I were originally octuplets.
As we can see, they don't quite specify what cell they used from Big Boss, but given how Dolly was made using the cell of its mother's mammary gland, it doesn't bear that much significance. It is likely, however, that if all 8 copies were born, they would have all died out in a fraction of the time that Solid Snake was set to pass away, but we'll get to that part later. This does, however, close the theory of how the two of them became as genetically close to Big Boss as possible. We then discover in the fourth game that they were transferred into a donor egg of a Japanese woman, and then used Eva as a surrogate mother to birth the two.
Blood from the east flows within your veins.
Fast forward to the events of Metal Gear Solid 4, we see that Snake, despite being only 42 by this point, has a very similar appearance in his age to Big Boss, who is 79 years old. By this point, Otacon had been running Snake through a series of tests for rapid aging.
Proteome analysis was positive, but the mRNA analysis turned up negative. The wrinkled skin, the hardened arteries. Your early aging symptoms look like classic Werner syndrome. But none of the tests were able to pinpoint the cause.
After meeting with Naomi in South America, Snake discovers he's actually reaching the end of his natural lifespan as a clone.
Your clones created for one purpose: war. And so, in order to prevent you from being abused by clients or stolen by the enemy, they shortened your lifespan and removed your ability to reproduce. It was a safety device to ensure that the seed of Big Boss didn't end up in the hands of others. The reason you're aging so rapidly isn't because of disease or faulty research or fox dye. It's how you were born. It's your natural lifespan.
For those of you who are wondering what this has to do with the Dolly project, this is almost exactly the same as how Dolly grew up. You see, she also began to show signs of rapid aging. At 4 years old, she began to develop symptoms of lung inflammation and arthritis, which wasn't uncommon for sheep, but these symptoms didn't occur until they were much older normally. They had her tested for all sorts of cases of rapid aging syndrome known as Werner syndrome, a real genetic defection in which the patient ages phenomenally faster than the average person. Ever seen Jack with Robin Williams? Yeah, it's kinda like that. They finally euthanized Dolly 2 years later, where she grew up to be about 6.5 years old, a little over half the common life expectancy of a Finn Dorset.
And saw her early death as confirmation of their concerns.
Using this information along with the formula used for the Dali project, it is possible to do something similar to the Les Enfants Terribles project. Now, whether or not we could do it to the exact degree that they did, that answer's a little more complicated. It's true, the way they did the Les Enfants project was almost note for note identical to how the Dali project carried out. In fact, Metal Gear Solid actually came out just 1 year after Dali's existence was revealed to the world. But the real match actually doesn't come from how Liquid and Solid Snake were created. The real match was actually how they made the third clone, Solidus, who shared a genetic code completely indistinguishable from that of Big Boss. So much so that not even the Patriots could tell the difference, much like how Dali had no genetic distinguishability from its mother. But the big difference between Solid and Liquid and their third clone Solidus is the incorporation of genetic engineering. They had taken one of Big Boss's cells, but they also divided up his genes very specifically. The dominant genes, such as dark hair, brown eyes, and unattached earlobes, were given to Solid Snake, and the recessive genes, such as blonde hair, blue eyes, and no dimples, were given to Liquid Snake. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. Whether or not we could engineer something genetically, let alone to that degree, has yet to be thoroughly tested. There's been constant conferences about genetic engineering and whether or not it could work or what it could do. They've demonstrated that it's capable to help people with things such as being able to profess in playing musical instruments, improve our performances in something like martial arts, and even enhance our natural immune system. If they're able to accomplish something like that, organizing the gene pool into dominant and recessive genes doesn't seem out of the question. If we set up some sort of machine-based Punnett square and then scale it out to an entire human body, and then pinpointing and terminating the necessary genes, then it would be more than possible to create a Liquid, Solid, or even a Solidus clone of our patient X. Whether or not they could at the time, however, we'll put aside, considering around the same time they were born, they also had more advanced AI weapons than anything we did today. With the given information, we can ultimately determine that we may not be able to create a Liquid and Solid Snake now, but it'll more than likely be possible to do in the future. Hey guys, thanks for watching my first theory episode of A Jack of All Trades. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all the latest videos I throw out. And until then, if you want to check out some of my previous videos, click the annotation to check out my E3 retrospective video. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. My name is Jack, and that was my trade. Later.